Instead, we have the opportunity to make a habit of empathy, to recognize ourselves and each other.
Hi, it's Edwin Rutsch here in Davis, California, and it's a little bit noisy, so I apologize for that. We have a lawnmower going and some construction work across the street. But anyway, I'm here with David. How do you pronounce your last name?
Breaux.
Breaux?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll say with David Breaux. And David's been here in Davis talking to people about compassion. So you would like to talk about a little bit, like what you've been doing here, David?
Yes. Since June of 2009, I've stood here in Davis with a pen and a notepad and asked people to share their written concept of the word compassion.
And you've got a whole notebooks full of. Do you have that notebook there?
Yes.
Oh.
This is the fourth notebook, and people share their written concept of the word. I stand at the corner and ask people. Some people come up and know what I'm doing and feel free to share what they want. So this is about halfway full. The other ones are full. So I think I've estimated there's about 6,000 entries now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow,
I've asked about
6,000.
That's about 12,000. So it's about half the people that stop.
That's like about the population of Davis.
It's about. I've asked about a sixth of the population. It fluctuates because of the student body. But I think there's 60,000 permanent residents and then 30,000 that come in and out. So I've asked a lot of people.
Yeah. For how many years did you say?
It's been 2 years.
2 years. And how long do you spend here on the corner a week?
Each day, anywhere from 5 to 8 hours.
Wow.
And then when it rains, I stay inside. But it's every day that the sun's out, from anywhere from 5 to 8 hours, including Saturdays, Sundays, holidays.
And how do you support that? I mean, that's like a full-time job.
I am currently selling the book and spending money very frugally. And because people kind of know what I'm doing, I'm able to stay with people who will let me stay with them for a little bit.
Oh, okay, so the community is kind of like helping out then to support this.
Yeah.
And this is you took those what people have written about compassion, and then you put it into this book.
Yeah, the ones from June to December of 2009.
Okay.
There's photos in the middle. If you want to look at the photos.
Oh yeah, that's it. So let's get really close. That's the photo. So what's your experience been like? Can you just share a little bit about what's been happening, and somebody's kind of walking by and you say, oh, stop and tell me about compassion? Or
I always go straight to the gist of it and say, as people pass by, I say, would you care to share your written concept of the word compassion? There's different reactions. Some people say no thank you. Some people stop and write. Some people keep walking. Over the course of being here and doing it, I am recognized for what I'm doing. Recognized visually, and people know what's going on. Part of an interesting part of doing this, the intent was to take a pen and a notepad and ask people without any real intent other than that. The book came 6 months after I started, the intent of doing the book. Another unexpected result is that people come up and share what's going on in their lives. I've become a corner street therapist by simply standing there and listening, which I believe is the first component of compassion, is listening. And to be able to, and like we talked about a little bit before, to listen compassionately, to have an open mind and an open heart, and to engage actively in listening to whatever a person has to say.
What kind of things do people talk about?
Anywhere from, this is near UC Davis, so a lot of people during finals are a bit stressed.
Stressed students.
Yeah, stressed students come up. People who are looking for spiritual guidance come up a lot.
Okay.
People who are having relationship problems. One person, when the book came out, one person bought 2 books, and he bought a second book, and he said he was going to share it with someone that he had just broken up with to get her to think a little bit more about compassion. And different things. A lot of people, most people come up to talk, to have someone to listen to them. And some people blatantly say, well, what should I do in this situation? I had someone come up a couple weeks ago saying, and those things, there are some things that are beyond me. Any medical issues, I say, go see a doctor, go see a professional kind of thing. Someone came up and said, I'm taking my medicine and I'm feeling this way and I would rather feel this way. I was like, you need to, what should I do? I said, you need to talk to your physician. I have no idea. I don't know. So it varies. And I'd say the frequency of it is about maybe 3 or 4 people a week will come up and spend about anywhere from 20 minutes to sort of a half hour kind of listening to what people say and offering what I can at that moment.
So it seems like it's the listening part that's just important for people, just to kind of be heard.
Yeah. I think one of the reasons that compassion is needed, because there's been a decrease in the way that people listen because of trends. I'll call it trends. So that's why people come up. There'll be times that I'll stand there, I won't say a word. People come up, talk, leave. I'll pretty much say hello and bye. They'll talk for about 20 to 25 minutes and just need to get something off their chest.
And how does that make you feel?
I'm grateful. I'm grateful for being able, and then also to be supported in a position that I can actually do that. And it's something I wouldn't have been able to do 3 years ago before I started this. I think I learned how to do it. It's something that's innate that I bring out, that I tap into, I think, more than I did before.
So it's like a sense of gratitude for the ability or the chance to do this kind of listening.
Yeah, especially the chance. I think I've been granted with an ability to nature and nurture, and now that I'm able to do it, I do it when the opportunity arises.
Well, the audio is going to be really noisy in the background, so kind of apologize for that. We're here at the Crateville little cafe, so it's right across the street from where you do your listening. You're always here?
Yeah.
At C and 3rd Street?
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about compassion, like what kind of compassion means and how it relates to empathy. So we're just kind of starting on that. What were you saying, that you felt that compassion was like action and empathy was something else? Or
yeah, I think from what I've been doing, what I do, I think there are 4 components that constitute compassion. And the first one is listening, that we've been talking about. And I think the important part of listening is acknowledging, which is the second component. Because I think without acknowledging someone, it lessens the value of what the other person is saying. So I think when a person is listening, they have to show signs, either by body language, through voice, through eye contact, that there is acknowledgement. And
that they're being heard, kind of acknowledge that you're being heard, what you're saying, I'm hearing you.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Which leads to understanding. And I believe that there must be a mutual understanding. I think without mutual understanding between those who are involved in the listening and acknowledging process, that skims the surface of being pitied. Which is an inequality. When one person thinks that another person needs help, and there are exceptions with parents towards their children. Parents know better. When someone is unconscious on the ground or something like that. Most situations, I think, with value from the mutual understanding. And then once that's established, then an action is taken in order to alleviate the suffering of one of the individuals or groups of people involved.
So you start with listening, with a sense, then would go into acknowledgement, and then there's kind of like a sense of shared understanding, and then you're going into, if there's suffering, some kind of alleviation of the suffering.
That's a point. That's a point that a lot of people have brought up. Like, is compassion involved with suffering? Can you have non-suffering? I don't know if this makes sense. The non-suffering compassion. Like, does the actual component of suffering need to be there? And I'm learning. Others are learning. I'll continue to contemplate that as part of a component of compassion.
Well, I would call that empathy. That's what I like about the word empathy, or the experience of empathy, is that in empathy, it's kind of, I see it as kind of like the first step towards compassion, like the listening, the presence, the hearing another person is kind of like empathic listening. And then kind of the acknowledgement that you're talking about, and the understanding. And then kind of where I see the compassion come in is that the compassion is empathy applied to suffering, or pain and suffering, and how do you respond to that pain and suffering. So for me, like, empathy is like, compassion is like this subcomponent of empathy. So kind of wondering how that resonates with your understanding.
Yeah, I think empathy and sympathy are similar, and that the compassion part is the action of the empathy. And I hear what you're saying as far as empathy being a larger component than compassion. And it's something that I'll continue to think of as it sort of being a ray of a sun. You have an empathy, a sun full of empathy, and one or more of the rays is compassion that stems from that empathy. I hear you. Yeah.
Okay. So that's your metaphor, that empathy is like the sun radiating, kind of radiating out on all experience, and then one beam of it is the compassion beam.
Yeah. Yeah. That'll work.
I'm just reflecting back what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, I thought of it. I always liken. I think a tree can be used as for any metaphor. And so the root of it is the feeling itself. And I think it can, because listening to what you said, if one has empathy towards a situation, there are various remedies, and each one of those remedies could be an act of compassion. And that's, I think, the thing about listening, acknowledging, and understanding. Each one of those are actually acts of compassion that may lead to another act, which are the other branches that come out from the core, which is the feeling, the thought of empathy, the thought and that feeling of being connected to someone who needs something to grow. I will add something that relates to what I do, because I ask people about compassion, and so a lot of times people ask me what my own concept of compassion is, and I always, at first it was long, and I narrowed it down to growth toward truth. And I say that because I believe everything has an essence to it that it is moving toward. And to help that thing or that person or that idea move towards its essence is an act of compassion.
So each person or everything in life is moving towards
an essence of itself.
An essence of itself.
Yeah. I use the tree.
Uh-huh.
There's a healthy organic circumstances that create a tree. There's the air, there's the ground, there's water, and all those things that are helping the tree grow towards its true essence are acting in a compassionate way. One can view that. And with humans, humans are a bit more complex. They have basic needs, they have psychological needs. People need to be heard. Mm-hmm. People need to feel loved. And so those things that move an individual towards feeling happiness are acts of compassion.
Yeah, it's kind of like everyone has like an essence, like a truth to themselves of who they really are and how they really feel, and to kind of be connected to that truth and to be that, for that to be nurtured is kind of compassion.
Yeah.
I would add is also the connection part, like you say that that everyone needs to be heard. That's a basic. And for me, that's like empathy. Like everybody kind of needs empathy to be seen, and it's kind of that reflection, seeing yourself somehow helps us move towards that deeper truth, maybe, to that essence.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That works. I'll
agree.
buy that.
I agree. Only thing I have to add is yes.
Okay.
If anything, I agree.
Well, I'd be curious if you ever get a chance to ask people about empathy too, in that, unless you're really wanting to focus on the compassion part. I'd be curious what people say about empathy, because I'm doing this conference on how to build a culture of empathy and compassion, and trying to bring the two groups, because there's kind of different groups organized around these different terms, to kind of bring them together to kind of have a bit of a dialogue about it, see how empathy and compassion relate.
Yeah. One of the most common responses that people write is empathy.
Oh.
When I ask them what they think compassion is.
Mm-hmm.
Love and empathy are the two most common responses. Perhaps as things grow here in Davis, someone will be inspired to take a pen and a notepad and ask people about empathy.
Yeah. So it's not, you're really focused on the compassion aspect to really get the. So when you say that that compassion is moving people towards their truth like that, where's the pain and suffering within that? Because as I understand compassion, it's kind of applied to pain and suffering. It's kind of like the sort of like being, I don't know, maybe presence to pain and suffering, that like when we feel pain and suffering and feel someone else's presence there, that it kind of, just the act of listening and being present to that pain and suffering seems to alleviate it in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess there's kind of other steps of finding other ways to alleviate that suffering.
Humans are vulnerable in different ways and in different degrees. And so bringing another individual, I'm using people as an example, bringing another individual to a state of awareness of non-suffering, perceiving something that may feel as though it be suffering, bring them into awareness that it is non-suffering at its core. That's why I think compassion is a small step away from love. It is a component of love that brings people towards truth, towards light, towards love. I'll use an example. Because there's someone that's come by the corner for a couple of years. I'd say a couple of years, since I first started, pretty much. And over that time, come up for things that has happened in his life as a child. And I do a lot of listening and kind of allow him to come to his own awareness of what he's perceiving that happened to him when he was younger. And at this point, it's knowing that, like you said, to bring him into the present moment, to realize that what he's experiencing as suffering is something that happened a long time ago, and to pinpoint where it's at, which is in his memory and in his mind, basically, and to some extent in the depths of his physical being, in a way. But the majority of it is his perception of what happened at the time. And to bring him to the present and to say that this is how you're perceiving it. And once in this example, in the moments where he knows that's self-compassion. That's compassion and also self-compassion. Compassion of what I offer as far as listening and to guide him toward a deeper truth of himself as far as his essence as a human being is, and also his own self-compassion of knowing that he is more than an event that happened a long time ago, because his essence is more than his own personal experience. So I think that explains what you're asking.
Yeah. Well, things are so noisy here. I think we're going to have to stop the video because I kind of doubt that the audio is going to be too good here. Maybe it will be. I'm not sure. But do you have any final wrap up? Do you like anything to say? Final thing that hasn't been said?
I'm glad you stopped by.
Oh, great. I'm glad I did too.
After seeing all the things that you're doing with empathy, it's good to put a person to the events.
And thanks for the coffee. You bought me coffee.
You're welcome.
see the world through other people's eyes. Now, empathy is a quality of character that can change the world.